Yeah, that's right, and Sadia. I don't see Sadia yet.
Live.
We're live, great. Sorry, everyone who's watching on video. We lost video briefly. We're still in our hearing, and our next witness, who's just beginning, is Kathleen Burke, who's Executive Director of the Vermont State Housing Authority.
Good morning. and
Good morning,
thank you.
Kathleen, take it away.
Okay. Again, for the record, my name is Kathleen Burke. I am the Executive Director of the Vermont State Housing Authority. I'm pleased to have been invited to come in and talk with you about the work that our agency plays and does here in the state of Vermont. Now, I opted not to provide a beautiful PowerPoint presentation, and rather what I opted to do was to provide a resource document that I thought will be helpful for you as you begin your most important work throughout the session. And I hope that it will be something that you will refer to as questions come up, and certainly I am always available to answer questions. We have a very expansive website as well that provides very detailed information about programs that we administer. So I've opted to not provide that granular detail in this testimony today, but ask that certainly if you have questions or if you want more information, you want to do a deep dive, look to our website, give me a call. So with that, very broadly, our mission is to ensure quality housing opportunities are available to Vermonters statewide. I think it's important to begin with just sort of level setting. How is the Vermont State Housing Authority different than the local public housing authorities around the state? Over the past several months, various conversations and testimony with legislators and others, it became clear to me that there's not an understanding. The Vermont State Housing Authority was created by the legislature, okay, in 1968. The governor appoints our 7-member Board of Commissioners. The local housing authorities, Burlington Housing Authority, Montpelier Housing Authority, Rutland Housing Authority, for example, were created by their local municipality. Those municipalities appoint the board of directors that serve on the local housing authority board. Okay, so we are, the Vermont State Housing Authority is an instrumentality of the state. We were created to administer the programs that we do for low-income Vermonters statewide. Public housing authorities, including the Vermont State Housing Authority, reports to the Board of Commissioners and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That is the hierarchy. We play a unique statewide role serving as both a direct service provider and an administrative partner to state agencies, municipalities, landlords, to ensure stable housing for Vermont residents across the full continuum of care. What we do, we provide direct housing assistance, rental assistance to more than 8,500 Vermont households. That's just the Vermont State Housing Authority.
So in a way, you're the biggest
We're the
housing
largest,
authority.
the largest housing authority in the state. The Burlington Housing Authority would be the next largest housing authority in Vermont.
You have a question?
This might be really silly. Do you have any oversight over?
And that's why I'm raising this up. We do not have oversight over the local housing authorities. And there is a sense that because we are the statewide housing authority that we do.
I think
They're
that's
their own rights. But I think it's important for certainly this committee to understand the distinction. Local housing authorities were created by their local municipality. The Burlington Housing Authority was created by Burlington City Council. Burlington City Council appoints the board of directors of the Burlington Housing Authority.
But the next biggest, like, for example, is the Burlington Housing Authority, the next biggest one. How many do they have? How many families do they have or units?
They're serving approximately, I would say, 2,000 to 3,000.
Okay, so you at 8,500,
I don't know exactly what their full inventory
right?
of affordable housing is, but they're significant. They play a significant role in the city of Burlington in providing affordable housing opportunities.
Do you find yourself, though, in an informal role of sort of helping local authorities with HUD, and other matters because of your size?
We do, and that's something that we've done over time. It's really, I consider technical assistance, collaboration, helping small local housing authorities comply with very complex rules and regulations. I think what we've seen more recently within local housing authorities is a lot of staff turnover. And local housing authorities may have 3 or 4 staff people. And when there's that kind of turnover, staff leave, they take the talent with them. And the new hires don't have that talent or experience. And so they lean on us, the Vermont State Housing Authority, for that technical assistance. Currently, we're providing technical assistance to 3 different housing authorities. And it's something that we do. We don't charge for that service. We do it in collaboration and partnership in the spirit of mission.
Yes, go ahead.
I just looked to make sure that it's not in here.
Oh,
I just wondered to what degree do you, as an executive director, or your staff, since you have a direct relationship with HUD, to what degree can you predict what's coming down the pipe from HUD? Or has it been to what degree can you plan versus needing to be responsive?
very, very difficult in this environment. That's the honest answer. I've had the pleasure of doing this work for over 35 years. And, in the past, I felt pretty confident about providing some projections in terms of what the future might look like, what next year's funding might be. We're working in an environment now where there's just a great deal of uncertainty. We have executive orders that come out of the administration that we didn't anticipate that impact our work. We know that the president's, big, beautiful bill, as it relates to rental assistance programs, recommended a 40% decrease in housing choice vouchers for the state of Vermont. And that's just that one program, right? I can tell you that, there are 2, there's a Senate bill and a House bill that is being considered in Congress. One bill anticipates that the voucher program will be reduced by 600 units over the course of 2026. The other bill
600 units in Vermont. Yeah.
The other bill would reduce vouchers by approximately 300 for the state of Vermont.
Is there anything that we can do as a
I'm
legislature
going to get to that. I have
good.
some recommendations.
Excellent, excellent.
So moving on, I'm sorry.
You said about confusion. One of the things I've always been confused about is VSHA and VHFA having to do with manufactured home park in Colchester.
Mhm.
And originally it was VHSA that was involved, and then it became it's called Windermere.
Windermere is a mobile home park that's owned by the Vermont State Housing Authority's nonprofit, the Housing Foundation.
That's you.
So that is us, that is me, we're VSHA. Now, let me, very simply, the Vermont Housing Finance Agency is the allocator of low-income housing tax credits. They provide financing.
Mhm.
The Vermont Security Housing Authority provides rental assistance. And,
Okay.
and manages affordable housing throughout the state, including apartments and mobile home communities.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yes,
At our November, I just want to say out loud, at our November 3rd, I think it was, hearing, I was really thoroughly and deeply impressed by your description and response to what is happening at HUD and the kudos that you received and the number of times that genius was mentioned with regards to your work is really makes me trust you implicitly. So
Thank you. So back to the script. Again, the work that the Vermont State Housing Authority does, we provide rental assistance. That rental assistance is funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Department of Agriculture, also known as USDA. We administer state-funded rental assistance programs for mental health and for the Vermont Department of Health. We manage affordable housing properties, again, apartments. We manage about 1,000 units of multifamily housing. We also manage 18 manufactured home communities in Vermont, including Windermere, for the Housing Foundation, Inc., which is a nonprofit owner.
So when you say manage, what exactly do you mean?
Manage, we maintain the property, we collect the rents, we work with the residents.
So when you say maintain the property, does that mean there's someone or some entity that has oversight?
That's exactly it. The Vermont State Housing Authority has, as if they were the owner of the community. Does that make it clear?
Mhm.
is the Housing Foundation, Inc., does it have contractual relationship with you or a legal one? Do you own them?
We do not own them. They have a contractual relationship with
Okay.
the Vermont State Housing Authority.
Great, thank you.
We also administer homeless prevention housing stability programs. We have a rental arrears assistance program, which was actually a product of this committee a couple of years ago under Act 47. We operate that program under the name of eviction prevention. This is a program that has been very successful, but it will need a reappropriation this year to keep operational beyond this year. We also administer a landlord relief program, which in essence is a risk pool that landlords can take advantage of. The idea that the incentive is for landlords to rent to tenants with a subsidy. It doesn't have to be a Section 8 subsidy, any type of subsidy. So it's there as an incentive. It's a risk pool. So if those tenants don't pay their rent, they cause damage to the apartment, then these landlords can come to the fund and receive reimbursement up to a certain amount. That program does not need reappropriation this year, but it is an example of a housing stability, homeless prevention program that we administer.
Yes,
If you could just remind me, is it just for tenants that receive subsidies?
It is.
Okay.
but it's for landlords
It's for landlords.
Yeah,
but
it
it's
is
access.
in
That's what makes
subsidy
it-
situation.
Okay. Thank you.
We also have home repair and home ownership opportunity. I'm sorry.
How old is that program? Just really quickly.
So we are entering year 3.
Okay,
And that was a program, and actually the funds were appropriated to the Office of Economic Opportunity. And they are sub-granted to the Vermont State Housing Authority to administer.
thank you.
Thank you, Mariam.
We also have home repair and home ownership opportunities. We have a manufactured home improvement and repair program that's referred to as MER. You're going to hear. Commissioner
You
Farrell.
administer
We
MER?
administer MER in partnership with the Department of Housing and Community Development. You will hear Commissioner Farrell talk about that in his testimony later this morning. We also are administering a mobile home infill project. This is done in partnership with the Agency of Transportation. This came out of an initiative of the governor about 1.5 years ago. Where he went to the E-board seeking funds after the several flooding events, and in response to our affordable housing crisis to improve mobile home lots and existing mobile home communities and place homes on those lots for sale. The program has been operational just a little over 1 year. We've placed 74 homes in that time, and 50 of those homes are either sold or under an agreement to be sold, a P&S contract.
Kathleen, you have a little over 10, you have about 10 minutes.
Okay. I want to talk about the current challenges of the Housing Choice Voucher program. That's something that I've talked a lot about over the past 9 months. The Housing Choice Voucher program helps low-income families afford safe, stable housing by subsidizing a portion of their rent. However, chronic federal underfunding combined with rapidly rising rental costs has placed the program in a sustained decline. The Vermont State Housing Authority statistics, and I'm focusing on the Vermont State Housing Authority, my agency. Over the past several months, I've talked a lot and mostly about vouchers in the state of Vermont, and I've represented the portfolios of local housing authorities in my testimony and in my conversation. Today, I'm representing just the Vermont State Housing Authority's portfolio. So the Vermont State Housing Authority has 4,495 vouchers that have been awarded to the agency over time. As of the end of December 2025, 3,852 of those vouchers were leased. The estimated vouchers leased in calendar year 26 that we're in now, that we've just begun, will be even further reduced based on reduction in federal funding. We're anticipating that to be somewhere around 3,700 vouchers. That's a gap of unfunded vouchers of approximately 764 units. We have a housing crisis. We have a homelessness crisis. We have unfunded vouchers.
Well, those unfunded vouchers, likely, will you be able, if that should materialize as estimated? I understand it's an estimate. If it does, will you address that by non-renewal of vouchers where families leave for some reason, or will you have to terminate, cause Champlain Housing Trust or yourselves to terminate families?
Right. All housing authorities in the state of Vermont right now are operating in an environment where they are not issuing any new vouchers to the waiting list, and they haven't for months. They are not making new commitments to housing developers for project-based vouchers. They are pausing commitments that were previously made to housing developers for project-based vouchers because there are not the funds available within the Public Housing Authority account to support those commitments. And I just want to draw a nexus back to Gus's presentation, and specifically the property in Waterbury, where there are units set aside for the DDI population. Those units rely on subsidy. The Vermont State Housing Authority made a commitment to provide project-based subsidy for those units, although we've let the developer know that we don't have the funds right now to support that commitment. So I want to just talk a little bit about what I refer to as the death spiral of the Housing Choice Voucher Program and what it means. Simply, funding doesn't keep pace. The program receives a fixed federal allocation each year while rental costs continue to rise significantly faster. As a result, available funding covers fewer households over time. And fewer families are served. Housing authorities are forced to stop issuing new vouchers, reduce the payment standards, which is also the amount that they will provide for subsidy for each family, or terminate assistance. Waiting lists grow longer and many eligible families never receive help. Landlord participation declines as market rents outpace the voucher payment standards or what housing authorities can pay for a rent. Landlords increasingly exit the program, making it harder for families who need vouchers to secure housing. Housing instability increases. This is the spiral. Families are unable to find housing or absorb higher out-of-pocket rent costs, face eviction or homelessness, increasing demand for emergency services and public assistance. This dynamic is akin to attempting to fill a bathtub while the drain remains open and the faucet only trickles. The water level continues to drop despite best efforts.
It's, to clarify, and this is compounded, am I right? This is compounded by the way HUD calculates what it will appropriate the following year based on it bases on the number of outstanding rented vouchers in the prior year. So as we get less vouchers in one year, when HUD appropriates the following year, they appropriate less.
That is correct. And so going back to quickly looking at the VSHA voucher utilization trend, specifically, if we're estimating that we will serve 3,731 families in calendar year 26, if we're successful in doing that, that will set the base of the number of families that will be funded in calendar year 27. And so now you begin to see, if you look at the voucher trends, as voucher utilization drops, voucher utilization has dropped for a variety of reasons, but mostly because Congress has failed to adequately fund the program over time.
What I'd like to do, since Kathleen is almost out of time, I just want to clarify for the committee, because I know there's serious concern about this issue. Two things. One, this has a potential threat, not only of terribly harming the individuals who are exiting from their units, but also organizations that have appeared before us and will, like Champlain Housing Trust or other of the local housing entities. They depend on, as they put together developments, they depend on knowing that there will be vouchers to support the rent in these developments. So they're endangered, and it has a cascading effect. As a result, I just want to let everybody know, I have a bill that I've been working with Kathleen on that is one that's a placeholder that for an appropriations to this year try to increase the decrease, slow the decrease in vouchers in order to, on a one-time basis, in order to ensure that the next year we will not get a lower appropriation, or to try to slow this downward spiral. And if anyone wants to talk to me about that and where we are in the effort to get the money for that, let's do it offline. I just don't want to cut. I mean, Kathleen, you're about out of time.
Right. And, okay, I'm getting the message. I'm talking about that as a preservation opportunity.
Right. It's
Thank
not,
you.
it's not increasing vouchers, it's
It's a-
slowing the decrease. And we will face choices as a legislature that are much greater than this downward spiral problem if any of the budgetary considerations in Congress materialize. We'll be facing, somewhere, 300, 600, or even more units decrease because of that.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a very quick question? Have you studied the effects of what the permanent loss of vouchers has just on the rental market? Like what the regular rates and how many units would be available? Like if this is preventing developers from actually building more units, like how this feeds our entire housing?
It doesn't have an impact on housing supply per se. It has an impact on housing affordability.
Sure, right. So in other words, if we are, when you said it's gonna prevent that developers have been denied the vouchers, you mean new construction?
Right.
Developers?
So let's use the project in Waterbury that is about ready for occupancy, okay? That project and their underwriting relied on a commitment for project-based rental assistance to serve a certain population of folks. And that's considered operating income in their budget. If I can't come forward and provide that operating income in their budget, they're gonna have to find that elsewhere. They're not going to be able to meet the required target of serving families exiting homelessness for those units. They're not going to be able to offer units to the developmentally disabled community because those individuals need the assistance in order to pay the rent.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the way that when we just have fewer overall housing units, period, regardless of who they're directed at, what effect that might have for a working Vermonter that, still can't afford as high of a rent.
Right. I think it's safe to say that the projects will fail.
Yeah,
They will not be built.
right. And
And
so
the
we'll have
reason they will
fewer
not be
housing,
built is
period.
because the tax credits or other funding sources have requirements which could not be met. It's not like they can build a housing anyway and just rent them on the free market.
No, I get that. I'm saying that overall, our state supply of housing would be, I'm trying to figure out how drastically reduced we would be looking and that downward spiral down the line as well, or just overall options for housing.
Kathleen, is there anything else you deem highly important at this point, knowing that we can have you back?
Okay, yes, please have me back. There's just two things. I would encourage the community to review this document. There's some great questions and answers that I put together at the back of the document. But I would like the opportunity to just talk quickly about what our legislative priorities are for 2026, if I may. One is the voucher contingency fund that Representative Mahali just spoke about. The rental arrears assistance fund that was originally a bill that was sponsored by this committee is in need of reappropriation. I would ask that the committee support that reappropriation. And then thirdly, this is a proposal that I am working with stakeholders and partners to develop, and it's the statewide bridge rental assistance program. There's a nice explanation in my materials that describes what that is. I believe that the rental arrears assistance fund and the statewide bridge rental assistance program really go hand in hand, especially in an environment of decreased federal rental assistance resources. And this could be, these two programs together could very well stabilize these affordable housing communities in which commitments have been made to assist lower income families and prevent eviction and further homelessness and the downward spiral as we work through the next couple of years with this federal administration. It's not going to, I think the message conveyed, you had asked about my relationship with housing and urban development. Just in late December, they conveyed that 2026 is going to be difficult for public housing authorities, and that if you received shortfall funds in 2025, which we did, a significant amount, that you can expect to be in shortfall in 2026. So it's a very bleak picture as we look forward. And so with that, I think considering funding these two initiatives is, in my opinion, critical to the General Assembly.
Thank you very much. I realize that haven't given Kathleen enough time to go through all of her proposals in a little more detail for the committees. I will be introducing legislation that addresses a number of things, but some of what she's talked about, but I haven't got it out of Ledge Council yet.
You have
So,
a competing question.
yes, do we,
Age before.
we do have another.
Oh.
So I'd urge us to keep these questions to a minimum.
It's super short.
Yeah.
We obviously would like to have you back.
Yeah.
Next time you come back, can I ask for some information so you are prepared for the question?
Absolutely.
I would really love to know what other housing authorities are doing, because we're obviously not the only state that is up against these really difficult decisions. So I think that would help us kind of paint a picture and, maybe they're doing something that we're not.
You would like to understand what other states are doing, not
Others,
necessarily.
Yeah, sorry.
Housing authorities in Vermont. Okay,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mine was a comment and I know you probably get it all the time, but thank you
Oh,
there are people in this building who deserve so many thanks and appreciation, and you are top of the list.
well, thank you. I have
Can't imagine.
the pleasure of doing something that I love and I feel pretty passionate about. So thank you.
Kathleen, 1,000 thank yous for coming.
Thank you.
Rory? I apologize, we're running a little late. We really do have to take a break pretty soon. Can people hold till 11 or shall we take a break now? We have Alex coming in at 11. We could ask him to come at 11:10, but
I saw him in the hall and he
Yeah.
said he was just saying so.
yeah,
I'll be direct.
And I'll be,
I apologize to the committee, but let's go ahead. Okay, Laura Lee is Executive Director of the NEK Chamber.
Thank you.
You've appeared before us. Welcome back.
I have, and I will skip a lot of maybe the intro to what I have. It's about 10 ideas and thoughts that can really impact what rural development looks like. I understand and appreciate the need, as we are a region of the most economically disadvantaged people in the whole state, of the need for low-income housing. However, or affordable housing, I think that the target that is so important is that missing middle. So I think that there are some things that we can do that can really impact that. It's funny, about a year ago, this was actually the first committee I ever testified in front of. So thank you for having me back. But it was interesting, in the process, I was told that, $20 million that had been allocated a couple of years ago, I was apologized to by the person who told me about the programs, to say that not one penny had come to the Northeast Kingdom, but that they do better. And I know that money was reallocated, and I think the programs are just remarkable in what they do, but it's still not hitting the Northeast Kingdom. And I think it's because rural Vermont, not just the Northeast Kingdom, it's different. It's just different. And the things that pencil out in Chittenden County, it's different in rural Vermont. And I think that so I can talk more about that. But one thing, I drove down in October through Market Street. Is it in South Burlington?
I'm familiar. That's right.
I was jealous. I
Oh.
was tremendously jealous because there was something that was happening. We have so many projects in our region, and we have 4 real main towns that density would work in St. Johnsbury, Newport, Hardwick, and I think Linden as well. And there are developers who were desperate, and they have plans on the table, and they cannot make it work. And that's just
craziness. And so I come here and I'm touch angry, but mostly just frustrated. Really, it's not really anger. It's just like, how do I make this happen for my region? Because we are at that point where if we don't fix it, all of the positive developments that are happening with Burke Mountain being purchased, with, you know, the Weidman doing a $40 million expansion, with so many positive things that are happening. If we cannot support them through employment and workforce, then then there's no point, right? All of the work that we've done, it's a waste of time. I don't need to go through how much money gets wasted. I have anecdotes about permitting and how much that's costing. I mean, there's one guy who's been working on a project, and it was $350,000 before he could even break ground, and that was just in permitting. Just crazy. So I had 10. And I had a couple folks respond to me a little bit further, and I can re-update my remarks and share them and get them back to you if you
That
want
would
to
be
have them in
great.
paper.
Yeah,
I was asked to do this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so I don't
really.
have anything ready.
I gave Laura Lee not enough notice, so.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm so happy to be here. But one is Act 250 and rural applicability. So the downtown and neighborhood development area exemptions have helped significantly. But in many rural towns, historic downtowns overlap with our flood zones. So in my own community, and to last year's flooding, it was devastating for Linden. But FEMA, it damaged so many homes and businesses, and FEMA buyouts further reduced housing stock. And so then when you have those tier 1 districts, it seems kind of good, but it's not when you're really looking at rural, because those are still not places that we can develop. And most of rural Vermont is in tier 3. So we need a rural housing pathway that can raise thresholds for small projects, streamline and shorten appeals, as was mentioned earlier, and establishes predictable timelines. Because with our smaller developers, the timeline, they can't wait 4 years. You know, you've got a, one person show in some cases who really have plans to make a difference, but if they don't have the time to wait. So the tier 1 zoning policy, I think this is really important to understand, because on paper, like, I think so many of our laws and legislation we have, it looks really smart, right? We want to keep the beauty of Vermont, and I think that on paper it looks really good, but in practicality it doesn't always work. So tier 1 designation is functionally inaccessible to most rural towns and villages. And forgive me for reading this. This is actually from a colleague, and I want to make sure I get it right. The permitting relief and pre-development advantages it provides are available to cities, not to rural communities. In practice, this has created a 2-tier housing system where development is enabled in urban areas and stalled everywhere else. We need dramatically simplified or zoning exempt development pathways in downtowns and designated village centers. The primary constraint in these areas is not land use, it's wastewater. State dollars should be funneled toward enabling projects through village scale and neighborhood wastewater systems, including alternative technologies. So this will require ANR and DEC to shift from a risk avoidance mindset to a solutions-oriented approach. Current approval processes are overly conservative and routinely take many months, and they are one of the main reasons rural housing projects fail before they begin. We also need to acknowledge in many of our rural towns, there is no zoning. There's no zoning.
Do you remember, I can't remember, we used to have a member who was from, how many?
90.
90?
Yeah.
Okay, no, they answered. I was wondering how
How
many.
many towns don't
Towns in.
have?
Oh, okay. Oh, in the whole, but yeah, that's
90, yeah.
90, okay. And so without administrative capacity.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you've got a 0.2 role, position in some of these towns where we just don't have that. So benefits accrue to communities that already have staff and resources. And I just want to also say about that piece from VHFA and that $20 million. If I were the person allocating the funds, I get it. Like, we want to have the biggest bang for the buck, right? Like, Market Street makes sense, right? Like, you need it. It's, how many hundreds of units are being put in?
Hundreds.
And in small town Vermont, you're never going to see that much, right? And so I think I get it. I understand why it happens. But at the same time, if we don't
if we don't keep our rural communities alive, it will impact everybody. Okay, so third, reduce the length and cost of appeals. Don't need to say more about that. Fourth, improve access to capital for those small local developers. So what I've got a handful of these people who are, they've got the brilliant ideas, but they can't get that first step. And that funding isn't available anywhere. There's a ton of funding available for the affordable housing type pieces. Rural Edge is really doing incredible work. But I've got a couple really innovative developers who want to do some small scale things and they can't get it to pencil out. And so I think we need to sort out pre-development financing, revolving loan funds, loan guarantees, and predictable capital for these small developers.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Yes,
Are these all housing projects you're talking about? Or are you talking about commercial developments
It's all
or
housing.
housing?
It's all
Okay,
housing.
thank you. Yes.
I think business wise, Vita really fills a great gap for a lot of those types of things.
I don't know
And
if
I
you're
think it's
aware that
something
they came
similar.
in to ask whether they could
I
go
heard about
get
it.
more involved. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you would support that.
I would.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just one piece that's missing. And I don't think it undermines the HFA. I don't, I think that it serves that one extra little piece. I mean, there's so many, I just was chatting with Chris Caldwell, who's the CEO of Community National Bank. Just really remarkable mind. And we were talking about just businesses and the ways that funding happens. And I am learning the picture better. I'm no expert, but understanding that there are some businesses that get funded with 7 different sources, right, to make it happen. The Yellow Barn project in Hardwick is an example of, it's a huge success. But boy, it took funding from many, many different sources. And housing is not in that list. So I think Vita could
I think
fill that role.
just a question,
Mhm.
not for now.
Mhm.
We're very aware of this problem of lack of capital.
Mhm.
The question is what to do, what we can do about it.
Mhm.
In other words, what does the president of Community National Bank need from the state in order to underwrite projects which they would otherwise not underwrite?
I think it's the revolving loan fund is what Chris was saying. And I think I have an idea for how we could put in probably 8,000 housing units in the Northeast Kingdom without dealing with the NIMBYism. Because I'll give an example, in Lunenburg alone, there are about 980 houses on the tax record. Over 250 of them are uninhabited or uninhabitable. So think about what that means, right? Almost a third of your houses in your entire town are dumps. Need to be torn down, the roofs are caving in. In some cases, they're being used as drug houses because nobody is taking any account of them. Nobody's going to complain if that house gets taken down. And that's one of my developers, or 2 of my developers are planned. One is RS Development and another is Tuckerman Hill. And he was part of the Northern Forest Center's rehabilitation of 560 Railroad Street in St. Johnsbury, another success story, very expensive one. But that they would take those infill properties, tear them down and put up and what they've actually come up with a system of a modular type house. We need to start to think differently about how we're building. Stick-built homes are really expensive. And there are systems out there that exist. And Evan Olson was the gentleman telling me about this one, is that Maine is actually taking a really active role in facilitating some of this work. So that could be something that we could compare what they're doing just as another model. So I'm so sorry, Representative Marcotte, what was your question?
No.
Did I
go ahead.
answer? I get excited about what it could all look. I think another piece of that, though, is taking those blighted properties. If we use that land strategically, you talk to the municipalities and say, hey, what if you, instead of sitting on this thing that nobody's paying taxes for, donate it to the developer, waive the back taxes, and if it's, is that something you're a fan of?
We know about this problem.
Okay. Okay, cool. So these are you asked for
Yeah.
tangible
Keep
things
going,
that maybe we
keep
could
going.
do.
Okay.
And I think another piece, someone was some of our schools in particular have a tremendous amount of land that's not being taxed. You know, you could create some sort of a development in that place, and obviously a certain distance from children and all the rest, but there's a lot of land in a lot of our schools and municipalities that's not being used. That's I think how we build housing. VITA, I mentioned, and our infrastructure rules need rural flexibility. So programs like TIF and SHIP have been helpful, but there are certain pieces that just does not translate to rural Vermont, and we're just not able to access in the ways that shared, infrastructure eligibility based on public benefit, not just public ownership. There was one developer, he's got plans, he's got funding from out of state to make this happen for this the Hastings Hill project in St. Johnsbury. It's ideal, it's a beautiful design, everybody is for it. And they can't get it to pencil out. And he said one thing that would make a really concrete difference, and I don't entirely know all the details to it, you probably know it better than me, is we have a tax cap. The length of time, and he said that if we had 7 years, right now it's 7 years, you're smiling. If we could extend it to 10.
He's referring to in what?
That's a good question.
Okay.
So I think that there is maybe an exemption for paying taxes.
Not yet.
Okay,
There is, he may be referring to, these are more conversations we have to have.
okay.
He may be referring
The building materials
to the
idea?
tax on building, but to know that's the mention. He may be referring
Tax abatement.
tax abatement, there is no tax. abatement.
Okay, so tax abatement.
Yeah.
And he said it would completely change the
Well,
landscape.
Tom and I are working on a bill.
Okay, so with great minds think alike, right? And I think one other piece that I just have not heard enough people talking about is our workforce. It's a huge problem. I know everyone knows that. I've heard people talking about that. But I'm also, one of my other hats is I'm the director I'm the chair of Lennon Institute that has a career and technical education center. And there are challenges and again, things that look really good on paper. But in actuality, they are handcuffing our training centers in our rural regions. So much so that St. Johnsbury Academy that holds they teach the building trades program, they shuttered it this year. Because they couldn't, all of the regulations from the Department of Education are limiting so much the flexibility of the schools. And again, I think that it's not as big of a deal in a place like South Burlington, but it is, and who knows, I just don't know it. I don't know it well enough.
Getting targeted.
But we are not graduating any students in those programs this year. It's a huge problem.
You know what Alex rates are.
Yes, okay.
Good. Just to clarify,
Yes,
independent schools like St. Johnsbury Academy do not have to currently adhere to the education quality standards that public schools have
Yes, they
to.
do.
So
They do. For CTE programs, they absolutely do 100%.
So the CTE program, are you saying that the CTE program that's contained in St. Johnsbury Academy,
Adheres to all of the Department of Education rules, yes.
but that's St. J's choice? That's not required by,
It is absolutely 100% required by the state.
so is the St. J CTE independent of the independent school, or is it part of, is it independent from
So
St. J?
Lennon Institute and St. Johnsbury Academy, I think, are the two schools. They share a CTE center. They are independent schools, but they host the CTE center. They are embedded within the school. So within the school, you have the teacher who teaches, excuse me, French might not have the license that is required by the state of Vermont Department of Education. But anyone who teaches within the CTE center has to be a licensed educator.
Because they're separate, because
Yes.
CTEs are separate.
CTE centers are, so anyone who teaches in the CTE center follows all of those same rules.
Okay,
And so your point is that so have you talked with the ed committee or?
There's talk, I have not personally, but the administration at the schools have. And unfortunately, the tenor of, I think
the vast majority of our legislators don't completely understand what Linden Institute and St. John's Academy are and who they're serving. And there's this impression that there's discrimination and that they're just hoity-toity public schools, private schools in there. And then 78% of Linden Institute students are below the poverty line. 25% are on IEPs. It's not some like, and they follow actually stricter regulations through the NEASC accreditation process. So that's another, I know we're not in education right now, but it's a problem. I think the CTE centers who we are putting through, they exist and they're great, but we need to make sure that they're functioning, that we're putting people through, because it's not happening. We can investigate more what those reasons are, but they're not coming through. And I think the other piece about the Northeast Kingdom and that, on the eastern side of the I-91 corridor, there's a project on the Northeastern Vermont Regional Hospital campus. They have, I can't remember if it's how many acres that they have, but they wanted to dedicate towards housing, and they've been trying to have it happen. They can't get developers to even work with them because they know that Vermont's reputation for building is just so appalling. And they're like, why would I even bother? Because I am just,
Do two projects. in New
Yeah.
Hampshire.
right? It's just too easy to be in New Hampshire. And so we need to shift it and have our reputation be, I mean, it's the only solution. Those are my ideas. I am working, I do have a plan. I've talked to many of our municipalities, have a really good understanding of what are those 4 main downtown type areas that are higher density populations. And with Vermont State University right up the hill in dorms that should house 1,500 students and only have about 200, ideas for how that could drastically impact our region. But that's a conversation.
We'd
for
love
another
to
day.
see your plan.
Yeah.
You talked about the 4 are St. J, London, what?
So
In Newport.
Newport,
so St. John's Break.
Hardwick.
So those that have designated downtowns
Right,
are St. Johnsbury, Hardwick, and Newport. Linden has a village, but they are currently working for that downtown center.
Right.
They're in that process.
right, great. Well, yes,
Well-
you have a question.
One, thank you. I've been talking about rural Vermont for the last 3 years. And so it's really refreshing to have somebody really bring light to that.
I can talk all day.
But so you had read some language from a colleague.
Mhm.
Are you able to also submit that?
Yes, I can resend I'll resend it as soon as I'm out.
That would be
Can I
perfect.
ask who?
Mateo Kaler from Jasper Hill. He's in Greensboro. He's very much a part of the Greensboro project that failed. With cheese.
Familiar.
Jasper hit, oh, Moses Sleeper?
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Oh, isn't it good?
I would
But yeah.
say also, there are bills that are floating around here on rural finance
Mhm.
that are still, what's happening is until the 15th, we still have the ability to just put stuff in bills.
Mhm.
After the 15th, then the bills have to be completed, sent to a committee,
Mhm.
and then once they're in a committee, the committee can change the bill. But the easiest time to change
Right
bills
now.
is right now. So any
Unless
idea,
you've already, I thought January 2nd was the deadline for,
guess what? It's
Guess
the
what?
15th.
well, but
Make a short
Short
form that
form.
says about housing and
It can be short form, but bills that are already being drafted by Ledge Council. Ledge Council is operating
Ah.
as if it can just operate through.
that's great to
until the
hear. They're going
15th.
to get busy.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they're incredibly busy. But anyway, now is the time for concrete ideas.
Mhm.
Okay?
Mhm.
Great.
Do you want me to formalize these any further? Like
Yes.
to say, put
If
this
you
into a
can,
bill?
you need language, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Sure, maybe prioritize.
yeah.
I like a good prioritized
Okay.
list.
Okay,
Great.
I will,
Thank you
I will
very
work on
much,
that.
and thank you for coming.
And I'm 100% sure of the CTE and how that differs in our
Right.
independent schools.
Great,
So-
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And-
I bet you'll be back.
Members of the community, it is 11 o'clock. I know we need a break and we're gonna get it
Alex said
now.
it's okay, we can get a
And
break.
Alex,
the
okay, so would you please come back in 10 minutes, not
I
15?